Broads Media.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? I'm chilling. Howie told us exactly how this was going to go. I need patience. It's going to take some time. Milton Williams just got paid to be Jaylen Carter. I love Milton Williams. We should all love Milton Williams. He doesn't do what Jaylen Carter does. The money getting thrown around right now is insane. This was always going to be how it went. Okay, imagine this. I give you 4 apples. Okay? Follow me. And I say, yo, in 3 months, I'm going to take away 3. And then 3 months come, and you're freaking out that I'm taking 3 when I told you it was going to be this way. Does that make sense? The Eagles are going to be at the top of the NFC. They are going to draft extremely well. They are going to get creative with some one-year deals. Zach Bond. There's a lot of big names available. Veterans at the pass rush position. You also need some help with the DT unless they really appreciate Jalen Sutton. They really feel good about a Jomo, which there's numbers around saying when a Jomo is out there. See, here's the luxury of a Jaylen Carter. Others survive and others eat when Jaylen Carter and his presence is swallowing up space. There are men who are able to get to the quarterback 3, 4, 5 times more per season to register a damn sack because of what 98 does. That's the difference. While the Patriots are paying him to do the same, it actually makes me wonder if the Panthers, who got Brown the third instead, if they made out better, got him from the Rams, 3 years, 21 mil. I did a Bleacher Report NFL free agency crazy window thing today. It was unbelievable. It was a billion of us, and every couple of hours we switch, and it was 24/7 coverage. It was outstanding. And one of the things brought up is you could tell the Panthers shifted from their first plan, their plan A, and had to go plan B real quick. And I mentioned, but that may end up benefiting them. Because what if you can get 2 extra players with the same money you would apply to Milton Williams, and maybe Milton Williams gets a couple more sacks this season and brings more pressure through the interior. But if you're missing out on those 2 extra players due to the compensation, the Panthers may actually end up on top. I can't be spending that type of bread for Milton Williams. And where did you get Milton Williams, by the way? Mid-round? Where did you get Josh Sweat, by the way? Mid-rounds? Go look at those comp picks. This is what you do when you're well-run. You brought back Zach Bond. Josh Sweat goes to play with the worst head coach to ever exist, Jonathan Gannon. I don't know. I just think I'm out in my backyard getting work done. I'm out front, maybe giving Brooklyn some fresh air. I'm going to the gym. I'm not thinking about how this team lost bodies today. I'm looking at it with this mentality of I can't wait to see what Howie Roseman does to put together a fantastic roster, because that's going to happen. It is such a lock, it's ridiculous. It's just going to take a certain path to get there. One that he warned you about. One that he stated may be unconventional. I think he looked at a lot of these names flying around town and he recognizes, I am not going to be given that type of checkout. It doesn't benefit you. These numbers are getting out of this world. And while I understand the cap is rising as well, there are better ways to maximize your cap space availability. Even with one of the savviest technicians in the world when it comes to playing the numbers game. Even he doesn't feel there's value in structuring it a certain type of way. And probably rightfully so. So the fact that they're, quote, quiet, even though they did bring back what everybody would have deemed the most important dude on the roster, the all-pro linebacker, I can't forget that. He did do that, right? He did do that. The Mekhi Becton one is fascinating because he's still out there. And was it Tim McManus earlier in the day mentioned, now this was early. This was probably early afternoon. But there was a comment made on Twitter about how they were not coming to agreement. Or they were not getting on the same trajectory. Let me see. I know I bookmarked it. This is about Washington. Yeah, we'll get into Washington. Okay, here's Tim McManus. There has not been significant movement towards a new deal between the Eagles and offensive line Mekhi Becton at this point, from what I gather. He has a key advocate in Jeff Stoutland and would like to return, but money has to be right on both sides. Okay, so this was 11:50, 10 minutes before free agency even started, or the legal tampering period even started. I like the idea of getting him in here and even pushing him out the tackle whenever Lane Johnson decides his career is over and he hangs up the cleats. That's my long view here. But we'll see what ends up happening. Hey, I got a long view with my front lawn. I want this thing to look pretty for the rest of my life. And I know somebody who can help out better than anyone in the Philadelphia area, and that's my friend at Green Lawn Fertilizing. If you are stressing about your lawn this spring, my great friends, Green Lawn Fertilizing, sure can help. They have created a custom blend that will have your lawn recovering from the drought that we had last year. Listen to this deal that they are offering. You're not going to want to miss it. They are offering 2 free treatments plus 10% off for the early birds. Green Lawn Fertilizing officially already started treating lawns last Monday. So for them, spring is in action. Make sure you check out the link in the description, which will take you right to their website through my link. It'll tell you Brode sent you, or tell them Brode sent you, and it's just one big family, honestly. We communicate all the time. The process of my grass becoming the most beautiful lawn in the neighborhood was so easy, and there was such great communication. It was a beautiful relationship, and you are missing out if you are not making your house look as glorious as humanly possible with the best green lawn you can find. Green Lawn Fertilizing. Make sure you check it out. All right, so did I expect Isaiah Rodgers to go? Maybe not. Maybe I thought that they would prioritize Isaiah Rodgers. Instead, he goes to Minnesota, knowing that Slay was most likely on his way out. Everything that transpired on social media told me everything I needed to know. And then CJ GJ and Slay both had their booth next to one another. You could see it in CJ GJ's face. He was pissed. And it's funny, he was hiding behind that keyboard because he was willing to talk that smack. But it seemed Darius Slay was just being him, being the goofball, smiling, signing helmets, and nothing was even affecting him whatsoever. CJ GJ was in his feels big time. I'm just telling you what I saw based off the body language. My man was not thrilled. And yeah, I mean, when that was all happening, it was probably because Slay realized where he was. No matter if he was saying on his pod that it was between us and it was between the Detroit Lions and he would love to come back here. Hey, he's going to Pittsburgh. I think he saw the writing on the wall. So I figured Slay would be gone, but Isaiah Rodgers maybe could have plugged in. Now there's more pressure on a Ringo. And maybe they feel very confident in a Ringo. Who's to say that Ringo isn't ready? They talked about him highly forever, and he had a cup of coffee here and there. He'd have a sip here and there. And then he also learned on the sidelines by watching Slay and even by getting to study Q, which is a big deal. Even though he's young, even though he's just getting cooking, you watch what he does on film and you watch him in practice every day and you watch him prepare for a game on Sunday week after week after week as he shuts down Terry McLaurin, as he shuts down the number 1 wide receivers in the league. So maybe they're right to assume that Ringo can slide in there. This is what you got to remember as well. When you saw the roster last year defensively, how did everybody assume that they would grade out? There'll probably be a middle-of-the-road defense, and the offense would carry them. And you all thought that there was still a great chance of this team succeeding. Some had them winning the division, winning the NFC, going on a Super Bowl run with an average offense. And that's what you deemed them as, and that's what you said the personnel would contribute. Well, you were off by a large margin. They were the best defense in the NFL. Me being one of them. I'm not calling anybody out, but I'm saying the judgment, the day of the tampering period starting, we got excited about Bryce Huff. This guy couldn't even dress for the Super Bowl, let alone be a part of this entire ride and be some contributor, even if it's in a lesser role than you would have anticipated after giving him that deal. But this guy couldn't even put on the pads. He had to watch with a totally different experience. Dude. And then everyone thought that the Saquon Barkley move was so crazy. Not everybody. That's harsh. That's intense. But there was a narrative that, me being one of them, hey, this normally goes against the Howie Roseman philosophy. Uh-oh, is he having an identity crisis? I don't know. Is paying that much money to a running back who in New York sometimes had some things that limited what his ceiling could be on that day? Some nagging injuries. Maybe he got hurt. Maybe there was an issue with the knee. Is that smart? He was the best running back ever in NFL history if he was allowed to play the final week. That's what type of season he had. You felt good about Devin White, a veteran linebacker who at least is pure at his position. He may have got benched by Todd Bowles, but we thought, all right, at least it's a name. At least it's somebody with some credibility. Could be a veteran in the room too, if need be. And that wasn't great. So if you wait right now and you play a different game, if you go find some savvy one-year deal type of players, again, not that I anticipate them growing into an all-pro by any means, because that's to the extreme. And do not forget you brought back Zach Bond. Do not forget you brought back Zach Bond. Do not forget you brought back Zach Bond. If that happened today, would you feel any differently? Probably, but you did that. I trust Howie Roseman to let this play out, let this ride, play the market accordingly. See, Milton Williams could have been the best defensive tackle on the market from a technicality standpoint. Is it just a weak market? I thought Josh Sweat may get a little more just based off of where the free agency money is currently, but he still got a good chunk of change. These guys are replaceable, though. That's something that you cannot forget about. Milton Williams is a mid-round pick, and that doesn't mean he didn't overexceed expectations for maybe a third pick. Whatever it is. But the main staple is Jaylen Carter. You have that. You build around that. You have the foundation. What happens when you win a Super Bowl is, people pluck. Burks goes to Cincinnati. They probably feel good about where Zach Bond is, of course, and maybe Nakobe Dean health-wise, and maybe even Trot. Do they think Trot could step in and play that Burks role? Now, Burks ended up needing to be relied on huge late. Maybe Nakobe Dean never goes down this season after he eventually returns to the field, so he'd be okay for the backstretch. You just might need Jeremiah Trotter Jr. to step in the early wave of the season, just speaking out loud. But when you win the Super Bowl, there are going to be names that walk out that door. There are going to be people who get a lot of money, and people are going to overpay for those names, especially if you have a good Super Bowl. The final game is what is just sitting on top of everybody's minds. It's time to cash in now. He wore a Clutch Sports hoodie and then was originally announced to the Panthers before I think somebody used the media to get that news out there. So somebody else, like, I don't know, New England, would call and try to create a battle, try to do this game where I'm going to raise you this. He was all about the bag. And credit to the Patriots. They made some moves on the defensive side, trying to establish a Mike Vrabel-led defense, and I'm intrigued by it. But I also think they're asking good players to be great. Maybe Milton Williams can be better than I anticipate over a 17-game schedule, because there's a lot that goes into being the guy, not just in October, November, December, not just in, well, December, it's getting late into the season, but I mean, not just in that maybe game 7, game 8 range. You got to be able to do it in the divisional round. You got to be able to do it as the guy with all the focus, all the attention throughout an NFC championship game, which could also be on the road. The Patriots are far, far away from that conversation. But then think about that. Then Milton Williams is 2 years into this before they think they build themselves back up to that level, at least, where they can get a divisional game in there, hypothetically, right? So now he's got 2 more years of wear and tear on him. That wouldn't be smart for Howie to go down that road. You can use your finances accordingly and do it in a different way and still be super effective. You got a lot of the main pieces here. And so far, Howie has actually, he has shown that the words he said at the scouting combine in Indianapolis was the truth. And he mentioned young players. So just be ready for us to have AJ, Devontae, Jaylen, our offensive line, Saquon Barkley, Zach Bond, Q and Coop, eventually going to need to get paid earlier than when the actual contracts are up, because that's how you manipulate the cap. Jalen Carter's going to get his money. So there's decisions that you got to make as well when it is also forward thinking. Right now also impacts the books for these studs. So you're in a weird space right now. Not really. It's not weird. I think that's the wrong word, because this is what you have to do year in and year out. But these are the type of details that you also have to think about if you're in Howie's shoes. Is what are their numbers going to look like? I can't wait. That's how these teams have to pay the big bucks. And the funny thing is, Dallas restructured some deals, right? So there are some Dallas fans saying, all right, let's go on the prowl for free agency. They're creating deals, or creating money, while restructuring deals. And they're just going to end up waiting so long to pay Micah Parsons that they're creating space to fuck up again. They're creating space to use it the wrong way again. Referencing back to that Bleacher Report stream I did, at the end, we did a segment called Hear Me Out, where you can have a super hot take and see what the others on the stream felt about it. Mine was the Dallas Cowboys should trade Micah Parsons. And since I am a man of the people, it would be, I'm trying to save the Dallas Cowboys from the Dallas Cowboys. Now, would I ever actually want to do that? Fuck no. I think he just wants to be an Eagle, and that talent would look mwah. Although I do think he's a loser, but he is also so phenomenal at football. But anyway, I digress. Howie Roseman has a lot on his plate, more than just we need big names, big bodies, big free agents to fill all these holes. You can't fill all of them like that. It's probably best to be in that middle free agency market. It's probably where you're going to get your best value. High risk, low reward. High risk. I wouldn't say, no. Low risk, high reward. What did I say? I don't know, dude. My brain is just a big pile of mush right now. Essentially what I'm trying to say, but that's wrong, because the floor would be average. The floor is not low. It's not low. But it was low risk, high reward. Whatever. Okay. If you go out and get someone on a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal, and it doesn't break the bank, and they've been stable in this league for maybe 6, 7, 8 years. They might have 2 or 3 years left in the tank. It may be better to apply pressure after those free agents instead of the 26, 27-year-old young defensive tackle coming off of a Super Bowl. I never really even thought of them coming back whatsoever. I guess some in town wondered if that would be what they do instead of Mekhi Becton, because he is a Howie draft pick. You want to show off your Howie draft pick, but it was truly just never in the cards. And you could have smelled that a mile away. All right, what else happened? You traded Pickett to the Cleveland Browns. What a fraud Myles Garrett is. You got a 5th back in return and Thompson Robinson. What a trade. What a blockbuster. Hey, Kenny Pickett, thank you. I appreciate it. Hometown kid gets a fat Super Bowl ring, and now he's on to Cleveland. Myles Garrett says, I want to win. I want to win. $40 million, I'm here. No trade clause, and let's go. That is no. That is no. You didn't want to come to the big dogs, huh? You didn't want to come to the team that actually has a chance of competing, huh? Lots involved. I get it. But what a fraud he is. Puts out a big statement, announces it on Twitter in this template with his name and his signature, and I just want to win so badly in my legacy. Oh, okay. McKee, though. We're going to have McKee, Jalen Hurts debates, aren't we? After Jalen Hurts has a bad week, too. Let's see the pocket passer, kid. And then you know all the callers are going to actually screw up the last name McKee somehow. McKee. McAfee. And maybe they say McAfee. Where's the McAfee fella? 6'6" pocket passer, McAfee. Oh, I can see it a mile away. All right, we'll continue. I have some audio from ESPN. We can also take a look at the Anytime Hotline as well. Before we get into all that, though, you know I love beer, and you know I love waiting around refreshing my Twitter account, even if it's broken. Elon Musk, you dope, on the biggest day of the year. You're telling me that you're just sticking thumbs up your ass? Let's be better. But you do know while I sit around and I wait for my NFL news to pop off, I just sit there with a garage beer. It's 0% IPA. It's 100% light beer. It's 1,000% quality. DrinkGarageBeer.com. There's nothing better that can ever touch your lips. Just saying. Do I want to ever go the route of Joey Bosa? No. I don't want anything to do with that family. I ain't feeling it. I like where our locker room is right now. I don't want to deal with any of the nonsense. Commanders. Let's get into the Commanders. They get a left tackle. They go after Tunsil. They lose Jeremy Chin. They get Deebo Samuel. Here's the truth. I am not here to tell you that the Commanders are closer to the Eagles until I'm proved otherwise. I don't know what Deebo Samuel is going to be. I don't think he's as big of a help as the name is. I think the name speaks louder than the actual production you're going to get at this particular age and without what Kyle Shanahan does so pretty. I'm aware on who their quarterback is, but I saw C.J. Stroud have a sophomore slump, and until I see him thrive for 17 games and get them in an NFC Championship game again with the expectations, when you actually have expectations, it changes things. It's no longer, wow, look at this awesome season that came out of nowhere. I would have never thought in a million years we'd go on the road at an NFC Championship game and win, 12 games this season? Now it's you're expected to win. And if you start out 1-4, if you start out 1-5, if you start out 2-5, it's just a lot different. And I'm saying this from experience. I've seen Eagles franchises and Eagles rosters completely fall apart after some big runs because it's not easy. Because you head into the year with, you better be blowing out teams, you better win, it better look a certain way. This team won the Super Bowl, and the critics were harsh and intense about their first quarter scoring and can this be sustainable? That's just how it goes. You have to handle that, and it's not easy. It's not me questioning anybody in particular or in specific who are on the Commanders' sidelines. It's just the real nature of how this goes. It's based off experience in the league. But yeah, when you get help in your trenches, that's huge, especially when you watch the Philadelphia Eagles not have to blitz and create so much pressure to Pat Mahomes. You're trying to shore up your line where you see the Birds twice a year and maybe even 3 if you face off in the playoffs again. So send a decent package out. They gave up a good amount of draft picks, and you do need help in the draft as well. It can't just be all about getting big names. Jonathan Allen ended up leaving for their interior. I mentioned Jeremy Chin was a loss. So some pieces moving in and out. Did they close the gap from last year? I don't know. Instead of losing by $1 billion in an NFC Championship game, right now they'd lose by like 22. 20? 17? I don't know. I'm not all that worried. Not all that worried at all. Not yet. I have to see how they go. What the next move should be? I think it's got to be Mekhi Becton. I really, really like the idea of Mekhi Becton. Really like the idea of Mekhi Becton coming back and shoring up that brick house. Those bodies, they're just so big. They're so large. It's unfathomable how big that line is. Okay, here is Mina Kimes and Dan Orlovsky on ESPN talking about if there's any concern with the Eagles with so many losses on the defense.
All right, Mina, with the Eagles losing both Milton Williams and Josh Sweat today, how much worry do you have when you look at that Eagles defense going forward?
I'm not worried. I think that they made the right decisions, prioritizing bringing back Zach Bond, who they signed early on to a super reasonable deal. To me, he was the hardest player to replicate on that defense, and they're also they're really deep on the defensive line still. Two, they just have such an unbelievable track record when it comes to drafting and continuing to draft and develop there. So I think as far as like them letting those two players walk, as meaningful as they were in the postseason run, a lot of that has to do with knowing your roster and also self-scouting your ability to draft and develop players in the trenches. So it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think Mina's point of draft and develop. This is an organization that does things a little bit uniquely. They draft guys early rounds. I mean, his last 4 drafts, Howie Roseman, their general manager, the first 3 rounds, so 12 total picks, they've all hit. So he doesn't take projects anymore early on. He drafts guys that are really good football players and doesn't believe in just drafting the physical talent. I think the second thing is they pay guys early, and that's allowed this football team to continue to build the roster that is inarguably the most talented one in football.
That's why I'm chilling, man. Howie has a feel on this. Does that mean every decision he ever makes is perfect to a T? No, that's not what I'm saying. But there's something as simple as this. When you actually think about the money that these guys are getting, and I know it's all relative and the league is making more money and the cap is rising and all this stuff, I get it. You know, you just watched a pass rusher get $40 million a year in Myles Garrett. These numbers are outrageous. But in relative to where the league is, the talent that's getting paid some of this money, it really isn't worth it. You have to make sure that you are stretching out every penny and every dollar, if that makes sense. Makes sense in my mind. You gotta make sure you maximize every penny the right way. And if you're constantly paying multiple different players $5,000 or $5 million more for, let's say, 5 different players are making $5 million more than they should. $25 million. Think about the talent you're losing because of it. I'm just using random numbers. But you can't overpay. And you can't overpay to the extreme of, Milton Williams be Jaylen Carter. Those type of players, rotational players, and just solid starters in Josh Sweat's case, if you can't replace solid starters, then you have the wrong front office. If you can't replace Milton Williams, who leaves for $25 million, you can't have a good front office then. Howie's been doing this long enough where he doesn't even have to hide what he's doing anymore. He used to worry about competitive advantage and this and that and all these tiny details throughout how he speaks publicly. He's in his bag so much and knows what he's doing that he doesn't even give 2 shits anymore. He goes, yeah, I'm going to be patient. Young kids are going to play. I need some time. It's going to be a little unconventional, and just trust me on this. There's a long way to go until September. It does happen quickly, especially when your season lasts long. You do realize, holy shit, I'm in Indianapolis already, and now we're at the scouting combine. But at the same time, I've gotten guys right before. I've gotten guys in the middle of training camp. I've gotten guys all over the place. Let me do my magic. And there's no reason to believe. Okay. This is probably the most simple way to put it, and I should have opened the show with this. Do you really think Howie Roseman is not going to make this team as competitive as he can, humanly? This guy thrives off of hunger to win. This guy thrives off of being the best GM in all of sports. He's one of the most insane competitors I've seen. I just believe in that. I don't know how you can't. He has proven it long enough. And this is difficult. You're in a difficult position. You have to make tough decisions when you have this loaded roster. But you have this loaded roster. It's not as if there's stiffs here. Quinyon Mitchell is going to be coming off of a rookie season where he won a championship. He's going to get better. Cooper DeJean is a rookie coming off of a season where he won a Super Bowl and had a pick 6 against Pat Mahomes in it. He's going to get better. Jalen Carter is going to get better. Nolan Smith is going to get better. They just had a whole nother season under their belt and still forming into their prime years. When you pay Saquon the contract you did, not this most recent one, that, by the way, I went back to NBC Sports Phillies, whether it was Dave Zangaro or Ruben Frank, one of their stories the day he was signed. And they brought up in that article a year ago how there was going to be an extension in place based off of the structure of the first deal with the guaranteed money. It reflects back to the here's 3 apples, and then the 3 apples get taken away, and then you cry about it. I told you the 3 apples were coming. Well, a contract restructure is probably going to come because of the way the first deal was constructed and blah, blah, blah. And then they do it, and they go, why'd you do that? Didn't have to happen now. In what world would they do that? It was always going to happen. Let the man cook. Let the man cook. All right. Why don't we take an anytime hotline call, shall we?
What's up, Rhodes? Yeah, I've been hearing all this stuff about, Dallas Goedert needs a contract going into his last year. I don't love the idea of moving on from him. I think he's a big-time impact player on this team, and I understand that there are a lot of other guys on this team that are impact players as well. But, how many times was, Jaylen dropping back, and next thing you know, he's throwing the ball, and it's to a wide-open Dallas Goedert. I think the jump between him, the gap between him and Calcaterra is so big that you don't move on from him. But if come draft night, you see the Eagles maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round scoop up a tight end, then most likely the writing is on the wall and he will, they will be moving on from him. Also, I'm frustrated with the Flyers, but that's for another day.
Yeah, that is. I'm okay with Goddard going. I know they were trying to squeeze out a 4th round draft pick in return, and I think Goddard's great, and I don't think Grant is even close to the player Dallas Goedert is. It's just the truth. Dallas Goedert is a way better football player than Grant Calcaterra. But if that's the way they have to do things to make sure they can get an edge rusher or some help along the defensive line or to do some other things, and Grant stepping in is a product of that. And then instead of Jalix Hunt being a starter, it's a super strong piece or another strong starter or just a good starter like Josh Sweat was. If you get somebody who can give you 7 sacks, maybe 8 sacks on the outside, 7 sacks maybe, let's say it's not anything overwhelming. It's a pretty good season, reasonable season. And then Jalix Hunt is in rotation with that. But instead of Dallas Goedert, you have Grant Calcaterra. Is that a way to spin it where maybe you can visualize it? I'm just spitballing, but I'm okay with it. I'm trusting the long-term plan here because I do feel getting rid of Goddard can open up the door for something else. And if that something else is super important to fill one of the holes that was already gone, I wouldn't say Grant Calcaterra is a hole. There are some positions where you have a hole. With Grant, it's a little underwhelming. It's a little on the I prefer something better, but I can live with it side. I do think that you can live with it. There are going to be some ugly block attempts where he doesn't pick up certain blocks, and it might be a little rough, and maybe there are some other ways you can shore up backups where there is at least a guy to go to that can give you some more blocking or whatever the case is. We'll figure that out. But I don't know if that's a hole. You have some holes. I don't know if that's a hole. It's just lesser talent. Does that make sense? But we'll see. All right, everybody, that's going to do it. Thank you all so much for kicking it with me. I was so nervous when I sat down the show to record this show. There was going to be news that already dropped 5 minutes in, but I've been refreshing constantly. You know, the second this actually gets published, we'll get the biggest Eagles or Commanders news there is. All right. With that, love you guys. We'll be talking. See you on the next one. Go Birds!